Hello and welcome, bourgeoisie and proletariat, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Karl Marx, and a specter is haunting Europe. The specter of our game show, So You Think You're a Sociologist! With me tonight are two very esteemed guests competing today. Coming all the way from America, we have a sociologist who has studied in beautiful, gorgeous Berlin, someone who wears many hats. They've authored books, founded the NAACP, has studied in many fancy colleges, and is an enemy of the American and British governments. We have W.E.B. DuBois!
Yes, thank you. I couldn't be more excited to play tonight. I'm so glad to be representing the best and brightest of my race, even if some of the groups that I founded thought I was a bit too radical for their liking.
Radical? I like the way that sounds. And in the other corner, we have someone hailing from the great colonial nation of Martinique, another self-made smart person lifted up by their community to pursue an education. He's a Pan-Africanist, a Marxist, and an anti-colonialist. He's lean, he's mean, he's a psychopathological machine. It's Fanon!
Thank you. I'm very excited to spread my radical shared black identity with the live studio audience tonight.
For those of you just joining us, here's how the game show works. Our contestants will answer questions about sociology and get points if they get the questions right. At the end of the competition, the contestant with the most points wins and gets to join the coveted ranks of the big three of sociology. Unfortunately, my co-hosts Max and Emil couldn't join us today because of network regulations and the most bourgeois scheme of our class assignment regulations. That said, let's get right into the show. Our first question is for you, DuBois. What is the most pressing challenge facing society today?
Well, given the continued state of the Negro as falling behind other groups in terms of education and wealth, I would argue that the most pressing issue is race. I did my own studies in Philadelphia and saw how issues of poverty, neglect, and racial discrimination still continue to impact black people even after the abolition of slavery, despite there being nothing naturally inferior about us. Even after all this time in America, we are still not seen as being equal to the white man, and are forced to perceive the world through a double consciousness where we not only think about how we see ourselves, but how others see us as well, namely how white people see us. I thought this might have changed some since I died, but since it clearly hasn't, the most pressing issue must be race.
What a wrong answer. Because DuBois answered wrong, Fanon, you get a chance to steal.
To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure why DuBois was wrong. I think he could have gone more into depth, but I'll take a free point. Given that race is something of a master status, black folks around the world made to hate their own skin, to be dehumanized and objectified as value defined only in relation to whiteness, to be raced, it's like an amputation, a restriction of what you're allowed to be.
Both of them are wrong. No points are awarded for this turn. Clearly, the correct answer is false consciousness.
Everybody knows that class is the primary and only cause of conflicts around the world. All right, on to the next question.
What is one example of false consciousness?
Marx, I don't know if you've been to Atlanta, but let me tell you something. Those people are obsessed with wealth. Their city may have been growing faster than others in the South, but that's certainly no excuse for them becoming much too concerned about gaining material things. The universities, gaining knowledge, that's where people need to be putting their money, black people specifically. And I'm not just talking about knowledge about industrial fields or trade skills. like some people seem to think is best. Booker T. Washington. Sorry.
Interesting. It's almost like commodity as, I'm just riffing here, but it's like it's social hieroglyphs. Yes, where conspicuous consumption is a symbol and represents power and class dynamics. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a great answer, but I'd still like to hear what Fanon has to think.
To me, the most treacherous false consciousness is this idea of mine about masks, and I'm not talking about a pandemic here. This mask that we wear is an extension of DuBois's double consciousness, and no offense, DuBois, I hate to say you were missing a layer. There's 3 levels to this false consciousness, a triple consciousness even. It's how you see the world, how people see you, and your awareness of how people see you. Think people of Martinique, returning from a stay in a colonizing nation, trying to act more uppity than they are, speaking French instead of Creole.
Very interesting. I like that answer. But contestants, since the vampire of capital can only be resolved through its destruction, what is the way forward?
Well, of course, revolution is the ultimate end, but beginning with those who are actually able to make some change in this country. We have to begin with the leadership of those who represent the best of us, those who are the most highly educated. We as oppressed people must also become more involved in the realm of politics because that is where real change happens. I myself have been a founder of many different organizations committed to combating racial discrimination. Either way, though, we have to be pragmatic in our approach. Change must be made by actually, doing something, not just sitting around and theorizing. But of course, that's not directed towards you, Marx.
Of course. Indeed, because the political economy, it only continues to justify its own existence of this most vile economic system. I suppose you've gained a point there. But Fanon, I'd like to hear what you think.
Personally, I'm more of an armed conflict kind of guy. I love a revolution. In fact, let me tell you a little story about when I was fighting the good fight. Think Morocco. Oh, it was summer. Fighting for Algerian independence. Oh, the horrors abounded.
And that's all the time we have before we cut to a commercial break from our sponsor, communism.
Paid for by our silent donors, Friedrich Engels.
Has this ever happened to you? You or a loved one is trying to institute communism. But you keep trying crude communism and it just won't stick. You've tried negating propertylessness through asceticism, but those pesky bourgeoisie and petty bourgeoisie keep refusing to make the individual choice of propertylessness.
There's gotta be a better way.
And now there is. If you or a loved one is suffering from class conflict, then dialectical materialism is for you. Introducing the all-new 19th century development, communism. Now with the capitalist snake eating its own tail. If your labor power is being purchased with exploitative wages and not ownership of the means of production, we can handle it. If you or a loved one is being exploited, you may be eligible for financial compensation, or redistribution, rather. How much more can the working class take? You know what they say, the best time to plant the seeds of capitalism's own destruction within itself was 20 years ago. But the next best time is today. Call now with the number on your screen and you may find out that you're eligible for financial redistribution. Communism, the wave of the future, in the past, today. Side effects may include nausea, dizziness, coughing, dry mouth, circulation of elites, upset stomach, fatigue, commodity fetishization, headache, neck pain, inflammation, hospitalization, class consciousness, unconsciousness, false consciousness, flushing, diarrhea, anemia, insomnia, sleep apnea, infection, death, and sweating. Patients taking communism may experience difficulties implementing communism due to an oversimplified class structure, nationalism transcending worker misery, or overlapping ideas between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. Conflict consensus cycles may be institutionalized, resulting in the prevention of class warfare. Call your doctor if you experience an allergic reaction and or medical racism in a privatized healthcare society. Don't take communism if you have a family history of grotesque wealth. Batteries not included. Communism. This time it's for real. Conflict. Boundaries. Alienation. You're feeling alienated from the product, from the work, from the
Gattungswesen,
and from each other. For the man who has it all for a price. Red for him.
Are you tired of the lower class always getting angry? Do you find that people just love to rub you the wrong way? I'm here to tell you that as I run for 9th Circuit District Court Judge, I proudly join the Americans for Respectability politics. Gone are the days of political correctness. I'm not racist! I don't even see color. You'll come in here. But you don't need to disbelieve me. Let's look at my party's resident social scientist, Dr. Blind. Now, Dr. Blind, you've gone and surveyed a neighboring college campus, Vanderbilt University, about their views on respectability politics. I would love to hear your findings.
Of course, Martha. In my research, we surveyed Vanderbilt University to see how the students respond to respectability politics. Actually, 75% of respondents said they actually got the urge to be racist when people get mad. Wouldn't you think the easiest solution is just to calm down?
Wow, Dr. Blind. I can't even believe it. But I can. Vote for me, Nancy, respectable, informed.
Thank you, misinformed.
Paid for by Americans for Respectability Politics. The following message was brought to you by Hegemony. Hey there, dummy. Didn't you know that it's in your best interest to do what we want? We're not saying we don't need your consent to do things. All we're saying is our power has inertia. Don't believe me? Just ask the color white. The color white. So bright you'd think you're looking through a mask. But you're not.
Hi. So we've had a lot of fun here tonight. We would like to talk to you about something that is a very real phenomenon that is plaguing our society. Code switching. It's real. Every day, ordinary Black Americans like me are tasked with seeing the world as it is and as how other people see us. But from traversing the boundaries of these two worlds of Black and white America, I've developed a second sight and have even more insight on the world than the dominant culture.
It's like a mask. We're expected to bear the masks of the oppressed and the masks of the whiteness, switching on and off depending on the circumstance. But only the white folks have the real eyes to decide what's good and what's bad.
Paid for by the Anti-Code Switching Alliance.
Code switching. It's real.
No, your screen isn't broken. You're looking at the revolutionary new product brought to you by Pan-Africanism. Together, we're revealing the revolutionary and rich histories of Black people around the world which have been erased by conceptions of whiteness. We're no longer choosing to define ourselves in opposition to whiteness, but instead discovering within us our own unique identities and voices. What do DuBois and Fanon have in common?
And we're back. 3, 2. Well, thank you, Friedrich, for that most excellent commercial, and thank you, DuBois and Fanon. Now, back to our questions. How how do you see labor power present in American supply chains, specifically pertaining to the input-output valuations on a commodity level?
Yeah, Marx? I've been chatting with DuBois behind the scenes, in the background, in the commercial break. We want to know why you haven't brought up race yet.
Yeah, I personally am sick of this. Every time I invite you over to dinner, it's alienation this, proletariat that. Don't you see that there is so much more to the issues plaguing our society than just class? But what about gender? Y'all heard something?
Ooh, that was weird. Strange. What I was saying, though, is that you have failed to mention race time and time again.
Well, perhaps class covers it all. Race, it's just an extension of class, right?
Quite frankly, I would say it's the other way around. Perhaps you haven't considered this, but the categorization of people by arbitrary characteristics used to justify 400 years of chattel slavery can have quite the effect on the progress of one's race. But don't think that I don't understand the importance of class, Carl. I was writing about class before I even laid an eye on your work. People in this country are race first and class second. Black people in America, often regardless of their class, are looked down upon by the white proletariat even, to use your word, simply because they are black. Can you explain that in terms of only class?
DuBois, I really want to agree with you, and I get that we hate Carl right now. He's being so annoying. But you're missing the point yet again. Surprise, surprise. I didn't want to agree to come tonight. The world just is not only America. There are other countries suffering the wrath of colonialism and imperialism. I don't get why you see it with such tunnel vision. It's not just black and white. It's colonizer and colonized too.
Fanon, you think I don't know about other countries? Did you forget that I myself moved to Ghana at one point? I went to France. I went to Africa. I went to other countries to continue my political...
Silence! I am not interested in silencing your perspectives. I'm just acknowledging that mine is right. Okay, one more question. Define society's relationship to the superstructure, which is to say society's relationship to ideas not directly pertaining to, but related to productions including culture, institutions, political powers, structures, roles, rituals, religions, media, and state.
I'm sick of these arbitrary questions. Marx, society isn't just proletariat and bourgeoisie. It's a racial hierarchy with white people at the top and black people at the bottom. And even inside those categories are more nuanced classifications, like I suggested in my theory of different grades, even inside the black community. You have families with higher incomes, the respectable working class, the honest poor, and the criminals, the loafers, and the prostitutes. And in fact, this last class is partly to blame for how black people are seen in the eyes of white people because they think that we're all like them.
DuBois, you're sounding as stupid as Carl right now.
Whoa.
Let alone the way you forget the lower class. Who are you to disregard the loafers, the criminals, the prostitutes? We all do things in our free time. And we're gonna need them if you want this revolution. We need the lumpen proletariat.
Revolution with those dummies? They can't even read.
Fanon, I almost agree with Marx. Almost. They're unnecessary. We need educated people, such as myself, to pave the way forward. You know, I talked about this at length in my theory of the talented 10. Have you heard of it?
You're a bunch of idiots! It doesn't even require psychoanalysis to diagnose you all with stupid disorder!
Whoa, what is happening to our show right now? It's falling apart. We've become just like the bourgeoisie, chasing after each other. Our game show, it's holding the seeds of its own destruction. Why can't we just agree on revolutionizing?
You are so forgetful about race, Marx. Your petty, white, working class revolution will never be successful.
I think it's time we had a revolution against you both. I died for the revolution. I died for the cause. What did you people do?
Well, I died.
I want to agree with you, Fanon. I do. But we see the world through the same way, don't we? Through a veil. Can't we at least agree on that?
No, you idiot. You see 2 layers. I see 1, 2, 3. I have spent too long hating my own skin, body, and culture. I've psychoanalyzed myself enough to see that I have an epidermal racial skin.
Oh, you
Screw it.
racial-
You can't even spell
Psychoanalyze
skin. You
yourself.
can't even
Just because I was born before psychoanalysis. You guys are all stupid. That's all we have time for tonight, folks. Join us next week for the show. And remember, the only thing you have to lose are your chains and your grade in this class.
Thank you.